If you hadn't had a chance to speak to him, please make sure you speak to him before you leave. This is really a great guy, and he's out there trying to help the 7th district, plus the city, United States Congressman in the state of South Carolina, which we're all involved in, and he's working his butt off to try to help us. So I know that when the mayor and the city council call you and we need some money, we got your back, bro. But Congressman Russell Fry is proud to serve the Grand Strand and the PD as a representative of South Carolina's 7th Congressional District. Russell is a true believer in the American dream. Growing up, he watched his parents work hard for every penny they earned. And since then, Russell has done the same thing. I agree. He put himself through his undergraduate education at the University of South Carolina. Spurs up.
Probably just lost it.
Yeah, I know. He also earned his law degree from the Charleston School of Law. While in law school, he served as president of the Student Bar Association, helped the school achieve American Bar Association accreditation, and received the prestigious Civil Liberty Award. Following graduation, he practiced law along the Grand Strand for over a decade. As an Eagle Scout, Russell shares the sentiment that you should leave your campsite better than you found it. Every day he strives towards the goal that we should leave our country better than we found it. Growing up, he saw firsthand how government decisions directly affect families living paycheck to paycheck. And he remains committed to fighting for those who do not always have a voice. Prior to serving in Congress, Russell represented State House District 106 in Horry County in South Carolina's General Assembly for 7 years. He served as Chief Majority Whip, where he championed lower taxes, limited government, pro-Second Amendment legislation, and pro-life policy. He also chaired the House Opioid Abuse Prevention Study Committee, leading to 18 policy initiatives being signed into law and securing record funding for opioid prevention, education, and treatment. In his first term in the U.S. House of Representatives, he was elected freshman class president. Now serving his second term, Russell sits on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce and the House Judiciary Committee, and holds leadership roles including serving on Leader Steve Khalees' Leadership Council, the Speaker Mike Johnson's elected Leadership Council, as a vice chair of the National Republican Congressional Committee, and as a deputy whip on Majority Whip Tom Emmer's team. Russell is a loving husband, Brownman, did I say that correct?
Close.
Okay. It's a misprint, okay? And a dedicated father to their son James. They reside in Myrtle's Inlet, and he has a chocolate lab named Jack. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Congressman Russell Fry.
So it is like really good to be here. It's good to be in South Carolina. Since New Year's, we've been in DC too much. It's too cold. It's too liberal. It's too it's Washington. So it's like you got to get recalibrated every now and then, right?
That's right.
But so it's good to be home. Thank you for the hospitality. Appreciate it a lot. Been a good week, and I think people are pretty dang happy. Like they might have some things here and there they want fixed, but when I talked to the president, he periodically calls. I was telling them earlier, he called me at 6:15 in the morning a couple weeks ago. Y'all, I'm not up at 6:15 in the morning. Like I'll get up at 6:30, but I'm not up at 6:15. And so you wake up and you're rubbing your eyes and you're like, oh my gosh, you just missed a call from them. So I called back and how are things in South Carolina? You know, I want that to say 3 times, like such big margins in South Carolina. What about that? So he just, it's still odd to me that like a working class family boy from Surfside Beach like me is talking to the leader of the free world. It's still weird. Like, and in that call the day before, he had was talking to all of the House Republicans, but it was being streamed on Fox News. So he says, you know, if Democrats win, God forbid, they're going to impeach me on day 1, like this last guy named Rice. And so, like, he just goes back into the last thing. And so he's like, and there he is, Fry. So, like, he gives me this great shout out. And so all the constituents that are watching are texting me, like, oh, that's great. So the next day he's like, yeah, I gave you a shout out. Did you like it? I'm like, yes, sir, I did. He's like, but I had to cut you down a little bit. I couldn't let you get all the way up here. I had to help you a little bit, okay? So it's still it's a weird thing, but look, I'm really happy with maybe not everything in Washington, but our office is kicking butt right now. Like to the staff, Jerry in the back right here, he's awesome. It is not easy to get a bill signed into law. Any bill, you got the best idea in the world, but Washington has like permanent ADHD, and they're like a squirrel, right? They're like, where did I bury the nut? Like this is like classic Washington. So getting a bill passed and signed into law is always a challenge. Well, we got one of those. We got 3 bills in the Senate. With funding back to the district, some of this appropriation, we have 15 projects over $16 million. Here in Dillon County, the Lakeview Police Department got some, the City of Dillon got some, got $1.5 million from the City of Dillon for stormwater improvement. So, you know, people aren't flooding. That's kind of a big thing. In a lot of ways, I'm pretty happy. And Washington gets busted, rightfully so, but not by not doing enough. Except this year has kind of been interesting because the Big Beautiful Bill was huge, first of all, but it touches everything. And the optimism that I have about that product is there are a lot of votes that you cast. Y'all cast votes on council. That one means something because that's generational change. When you think about what the country was facing before passage of that bill, everybody in this room's taxes were going up. Every single person, your businesses, you were going to die, they were going to tax you more. Your standard deduction, like your taxes were going up. And what would have happened if, say, Kamala Harris was president? Would we have cut your taxes? I don't know. But the state of the economy, if you remember last year around this time, the state of the economy was, we are still reeling from Joe Biden's America. We got inflation that's sky high. It's coming down, it's sky high. We got interest rates that are high. There's all different types of independent watchdog groups out there and government agencies that said the same thing. That if these taxes raise, the largest tax increase, if there was a trigger. This tax cuts ends on this date and then it goes up. The taxes are raised, we would have had an economic mess. Huge mess. Job losses, people having less income or no income if they didn't have a job. The outlook was not good. But the Congress, despite the legacy media saying we couldn't do it, despite Democrats fighting everything that they threw at us, we actually got something really big and really impactful. The tax stuff is huge, but also huge is the regulatory framework that makes it easier to produce energy in this country. We can't do anything without energy. These lights are important. We can't do anything without it. We are losing, we could lose the 21st century because we have overregulated the production of energy. Think about the last time that a nuclear facility went up online and began to generate electricity. A couple years ago in Vogel. China's pumping one of these out every week. Coal plants every week. If we are going to meet the challenge of the 21st century and beat the communist Chinese, then we have to win the energy. We have to win the AI battle too. So the Big Beautiful Bill had that. The border, let's talk about that. I got kids in the room. S show for a minute. because the border was wide open. If you went down to Yuma, Arizona and saw what I saw, like, your jaw would hit the floor. You had people from every country at the border, sitting there waiting for Biden's border patrol to pick them up and ship them into the interior of the country. You had cartels that were just running through and bringing fentanyl, which of course has done a number on Dillon County, on Horry County. Every town and city in this country is reeling from that. It was a mess. And on top of it, council, school boards, state governments, federal governments are all spending treasure and all spending your tax dollars to support an illegal immigration regime that was unsustainable. So these are the things that you're facing, but in the big bill, it's great. We funded ICE for 4 years. We enhanced board security. We got more immigration judges. You know, there's a lot of news too. I'm going to pivot for a minute. I just came back from Phoenix. Went down there for a hearing. 2 other members of Congress, kind of some investigatory stuff. But we went to an ICE detention facility south of Phoenix. Okay, this place. Not that I would want to stay in an ICE detention facility, but if I had to choose between the jail here in Dillon County and the ICE detention facility, I'm choosing ICE all day long. They have iPads, like they have round-the-clock health care, like they get through, but these judges, I could not imagine doing this job, by the way, because you're an immigration judge talking to somebody who's a detainee, they can't speak the language. You have interpreters from 170 different languages that are on call, ready to come call in, and they just do these round-the-clock, boom, 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 one after the other. But it was really impressive to see the operation. And so, in a lot of ways, the president comes in, fixes the border crisis, right? The economy, right now, let's talk about that for a second. Because of the big, beautiful bill, the economy is starting to kick back up. We're starting to see some signs. The Dow hit up, keeps hitting records. GDP is at 4.5%. Insane. That's like a really good figure. Wages are growing at a faster pace than inflation, which means that the pressure that working families feel when they go to the grocery store is a little bit less. It's a little bit, I'm not gonna say it's great, we got a long way to go to dig out from where we were, but the pressure is starting, the relief valve is there. You talk to businesses, the surety is there. I was in Darlington, when was that, Jerry? Monday? Yes, sir. We were at a wholesale warehouse where they do building supplies. I said, what's going on like in your world today? I said, we're starting to see some economic activity pick up. I said, is that weather related? Like, what's the cause of that? They said, people are starting to spend money again. Well, that's great. Consumer spending is up. The power of the dollar in your pocket is up. So there's some trouble, but you still got a long way to go. But these things are good activities. Look, the metric is simple. Do you get to keep more money in your pocket? Yeah, that's what I want you to do. Is your business a little bit more successful? Maybe, sure. Is your tax, your regulatory environment better? Is the government getting out of your way? That's my objective. I think we should. Washington's crazy, by the way. I have a bill, and you're going to laugh about it, but there's a couple reasons why I picked it. The government was regulating your shower heads. Okay, like think about this for a second. As small as the shower head is, like if they're coming down to the shower head to regulate, what are they not regulating? Right? Like this is like such a big. It's like, oh, the shower bill. You know, you can kind of joke with the shower bill, but the point is that if they're going to come down and regulate even as small as something as a shower head, they're touching every facet of your life. Plus, the president likes it because if you've ever heard him talk about the shower. You ever go into a hotel and they're just like, what is this? I don't know if you've noticed, but I have this big, beautiful head of hair. But I think getting back to the basics is important. And we've got a lot of individual legislative initiatives. There was a couple of next big things, but permitting reform. So permitting reform, when you say that, these guys' eyes just glazed over. They're like, what the heck is that? Here's how that's important. You can't build a road, you can't mine for critical minerals that are in your cell phone, you can't do anything because anytime you try to do something, you got some government agency telling you can't. And even if they say, all right, here's your permit, then guess what happens next? You get challenged by some liberal environmental group. No, you cannot do this. The spotted mollusk is too important. We have to have the spotted mollusk. Forget the jobs in Port of Charleston. The mollusk is more important. The mayor's laughing about this. But this is kind of the stupidity of Washington. And then you think about the permit stuff. If you have, this is a direct effect here. You have a pipeline from Lake City to Myrtle Beach. It's an 8-inch pipeline that runs natural gas that feeds the coast. Okay? Dominion Energy wanted to put a 16-inch pipeline right next to it, right? They got to go through all the same permits again. They got to go through all that stuff again. And then what happened? They got challenged. They held up in court for years. And meanwhile, in Ori, there was a moratorium on construction of anything that involved natural gas. So you want to talk about somebody getting mad? Try telling a spouse that she can't have her gas stove that she really wanted. Or a guy that wants to build a Chipotle restaurant and they need the natural gas. That's crazy. But it was the environmental stuff and the permitting. That's the kind of stuff, real world, why that's important. So that's going to be coming up this year. But look, I think in a lot of respects, there are things that we have done that have never been done before. Mandatory spending, which is crippling our national debt. These are things like Medicare, Medicaid, things like that. Massive, massive amount of spending. For the first time in 20, 30 years, Republicans were able to reform the way that mandatory spending happens as it pertains to Medicaid so that illegal immigrants aren't taking health care dollars. It's kind of wild. Like, you're not a citizen and you're taking the dollars instead of it going over here to an actual citizen. But these are the kind of the things that go on in Washington and around the country. $500 billion walks out the door of our treasury every single day or every single year to waste, fraud, and abuse. $500 billion. Think about the roads, bridges, ports, airports, healthcare, education. Think about all of that money that you could fund. You know, the state of South Carolina's budget, you know what that is? State dollars, not federal. But you know what the state of South Carolina's budget is? About $10 billion. So it would take 50 years of South Carolina budget spending to equate 1 year in the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse that happens in our federal government. That's crazy to me. Somebody asked about the SAVE Act earlier. Who knows what that is? Who doesn't know what that is? And that's okay. You know what that is?
Close, fingers.
All right. I'm going to ask you some common sense. So if you go, how old are you?
25.
25. So when you go to the gas station and you pick up beer, what do you have to do?
Show them ID.
When you get on an airplane, what do you have to do?
Show them ID.
When you buy a lottery ticket, what do you have to do?
Never bought one.
Never bought a lottery ticket. Probably show an ID. When you buy a firearm, what do you have to do?
Show them ID.
When you vote, what do you have to do?
Do you have to show them ID?
In this state, you do. In other states, you don't. So the Save America Act is simple. It says that if I'm picking on him, I had to. He was sitting there like, I got to single somebody else. We're gonna get the baseball guy. It just says that if you're in a state that doesn't require an ID to vote, that you have to present your ID to vote. And it also says that if you're registering to vote, the Registration and Election Commission can ask you, are you a citizen of this country? That's pretty easy. Like, there's a mayor, think about this, there's a mayor in Kansas who is not a citizen, who got elected and voted for himself, and he's not a citizen. So the Save America Act is pretty simple. You got to show your ID to vote no matter what state you're in. It passed the House. I actually think, I hope, that there's enough sensible Democrats to vote for it. Now, if you rewinded 20 years ago, you had Chuck Schumer saying like, people should present their ID to vote. And now Chuck Schumer, 20 years later, is like, it is racist to say that you must show your ID to vote. These arguments are like really tired, and they're really dumb if you think about it. Because you show your ID for everything. Maybe not buying a lottery ticket, I don't know. But you show your ID for everything. And when they had these arguments in South Carolina before we adopted voter ID, they said, if you do this, you're going to suppress turnout. Well, like, if that's true, that's a concern. Like, we want people to vote. But guess what? It didn't suppress turnout. When they did this in Georgia 2 years ago, they said this is Jim Crow 2.0. And if you do this, you will suppress minority participation. Guess what? Minorities voted in higher percentages and numbers than ever before in the next election. There is no compelling argument that I have heard on why we should not have this. It's why at least one Democrat, John Fetterman, I don't know if he's a Democrat.
I don't think he is.
I don't know.
I think he's trying to
He's
say.
independent.
More of an independent.
Yeah. Like rational. Usually you get yelled at and screamed at. He's screaming back at the other side, his own side.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get there with that. I hope we do. We got a lot of stuff coming up. It's really important to the country. And then we got an election to come up. I think things kind of turn out like this. If there is a credible set of ideals or ideas that are different than the president's or the Republicans, I'm all ears to hear what they might be. But the only thing that I presently see is orange man bad, so vote for us. That's not a winning strategy. That's not how you compel and get the rest of the country to get on your side. So I think we've got certainly our work cut out for us, but I'll tell you what, it's been a good couple of years. It's not been a perfect couple of years, or a year and a half, but that president does not sleep. He's up at midnight tweeting off like a mile a minute, 6:30 calling me, like he's got a million other things to do other than call me, and like he just doesn't sleep. And he's funny too, by the way. That's always like that, you know. But it's refreshing to see because we did go from a president who was sleeping 20 hours a day and awake for 4 to a president who's awake for 20 and sleeps for 4. That's the difference. And I think the American people expect nothing less. So I'm going to end it on that. Oh, I'm locally here. We talked about some Dillon stuff. But we had some really good wins on the appropriations front. Stuff, you think about the Chesterfield County Sheriff as an example. They have radios that are so old that they don't get signal at the bottom of the hill. So if you're chasing some drug addict, criminal, and you're at the bottom of that hill, that's a problem, right? So we take things like that when there are real needs, and we try to be that voice. And we're really happy with that progress for y'all and for the rest of the district. And you know, everyone always says, Horry County gets so much money. You know, I live in Horry County, by the way, and I might get a lot of SHIT if they knew this. They got one thing. The PD got so much more. It just kind of fell that way this time, but disproportionate, like win. But you know, small town, rural America, it's hard. It's a little bit more challenging. Myrtle Beach has got a lot of needs, but they also have a lot of revenue. Y'all don't have that same luxury. And so happy to do it. And to the extent that we can, we always team up with Lindsey Graham's office on his side to kind of go work that angle too. But we're always happy to be in the fight. I think it's important to be in the fight. This is the moment. And that's why I'm optimistic, not only about the election, but about the future of the country, because today's decisions and the things that we're doing today are going to have a generational impact on where we head. And with that, I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to answer any questions. Is that okay? We're going to do Q&A? Absolutely. What's going on? What's on your mind?
I'm just glad to say that you mentioned it Save America.
It's so common sense. You know, 84%, by the way, 84% of people support the Save, they support voter ID, including 71% of Democrats. But somehow there's a disconnect when you cross the Potomac into Washington, D.C., that is somehow strangely partisan and racist. I don't understand that, but that's an easy, for me, it's an easy calculus. Okay, guys, we're gonna answer some questions here. I'm only home for a week.
week.
This might be something more for the South Carolina House, but do you have any idea of when South Carolina is going to change the tax laws into what y'all passed with the BBB?
Soon, I've heard. And what he's talking about is conformity. It's a term called conformity that mirrors the federal tax system. So if the feds change their tax structure, the state usually comes in, and it's not like they adopt the same policies. They just make sure that it mirrors it and marries it a little bit, so that there's not this disjumbled state code and federal code. I've heard soon, but I don't know what soon is in Columbia speak. But it's certainly on the radar because people are filing for their tax returns right now.
And what else what they're saying is, you're going to have to refile when it changes over.
Yeah.
And, or amend.
Yeah,
Your tax when it changes over. So.
What else is going on? Is that it? Oh, easy. Are y'all full and like tired? Good
Well,
food.
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Has there been any conversation in Washington along the lines of term limits?
Yes. So the Judiciary Committee, which I'm a part of, passed out a term limits bill. It's waiting floor action. I don't know if that will pass or not. If I'm being honest, I don't know if that will pass. But it has made it through the committee and is waiting for action on it.
Since the war on, not the war, I guess the procedures that are slowing down, the drugs coming in from Venezuela through the border, as we ran numbers to see if death tolls go down.
Yes.
drugs.
Yes, in fact. That's a great. Did y'all hear his question back there? He asked about the amount of drugs coming into the country and if that's impacted the death toll. So I think for the first time in a long time, you've actually seen a decrease in both overdoses and deaths related to that. And that's attributable to a couple things. One, it's holding China's feet to the fire on sending the precursors over to manufacture the fentanyl. It's also clamping down on the border and the people who were bringing those drugs across with impunity. They just kept bringing them over. So for the first time in a very long time, you've had a decrease in overdoses. Yeah.
Also, loaded with ships out in the water.
That helps too. I mean, it looks like a video game. So like you can like playing.
It's going straight out, boom.
Yeah. It's like Call of Duty or something. You know what I'm talking about? Bam.
He knows what he's talking about.
We're on the same page. No, I think that helps. And Venezuela is interesting. There's going to be a movie about that some year. Seriously, like from what the reports that we've received about it, the operation itself, the heroism. I mean, to fly into a country with virtually undetected, and to take the leader of that country, serve him his warrant, and get him out of there is crazy. In a really cool way. But the president was serious about that. I mean, their government was propped up on the sale and distribution of narcotics all around the world, but mostly in our country. And the guy was bad. I mean, he was not actually elected. There'd be rampant crime. Venezuela used to be one of the most prosperous countries in South America. And then socialism happened. And they took all the oil and natural gas for themselves. They kicked out the American and other companies that were part of it. And for maybe like 6 months, they had a really fat treasury so they could spend all this money on their socialist ideas. And then they ran out of other people's money, which is what happens with socialism. So hopefully they're on the right track now. That was a big move by the president. All right, well that's that. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for letting me crash the Kiwanis Club. I appreciate the work that y'all do. That matters. And he said something, I think in the bio, Boy Scouts have a motto that you leave your campsite better than you found it. That's our mission in life always.
Yep.
at your church, at City Hall, in your community, and even in the U.S. Congress. It's our job for her to lead this country a little bit better than we've done. So thank you, and I'll be around for a little bit. I'm not going to sing anymore, or I won't sing at all, actually. But be around to talk to you for a little bit. Thanks for letting me be in Dillon County.